I want to thank you all for being here today. We were just trying to discuss, well, what brought you all out today? It's kind of packed. Happy 4th of July week. We're going to have you all had an opportunity to read the minutes? All righty, is there any discussion? I'm sorry, appeal of decisions. I'm moving too fast. Let me go back. I got excited to see y'all. Appeal of decisions pursuant to the provisions of 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws. Please take notice that decisions of the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. Now, have you all had an opportunity to review the minutes? And is there any discussion?
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. And are there any Metro Council referrals?
No council members present today.
All righty. Thank you so much. Do we have any old business to consider?
No.
You all? Okay. I'll accept a motion to move the consent agenda. If there are no objections or need for discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All righty, thank you. Any opposed? New business 07-19-02, the board to confirm reappointment of Mr. Jeff Haynes as member of the Parks Board representing the Metro Planning Commission effective June 14, 2019. Mr. Haynes' term will expire May 31st, 2020. And this is just an acknowledgement, no need for a vote. 07-19-03, Ms. Jenny Hannon, representing Friends of Warner Parks, requests permission to address the board regarding fundraising for various projects. Is Ms. Hannon, Jenny Hannon here? All righty, that's not Jenny Hannon.
That is not. It is not. I'm Kevin Roddy. I'm board chair, Friends of Warner Park. So I want to introduce Jenny Hannon, who I think I made that announcement last time I was here that we recently hired her. This is day 2 of her job at Friends of Warner Parks. She's here to talk to you a little bit more about our capital campaign that is getting broader, and which to me as board chair is further confirmation that we made a great hire. She's here day 2 and here to talk about a large capital campaign. So Jenny, thanks.
Thank you all. When I sat over there, I didn't need these. Remember, Stan? So it's been a while, but it's a pleasure to be here today. So thank you for allowing me. I've served on the park board for 12 years and was never over here. So it's nice to do this, especially on behalf of Warner Parks. So as Kevin mentioned, this is my second day, but I've been working for the last few months with Gavan White, who is the chairman of our capital campaign, and you all know Bob Parrish, obviously needs no introduction. And so I hope, did you, Janet, they all have these right in your agenda. So I just, I'm not going to read it verbatim because you have it there, but I want to acknowledge that for the last 3 years, since 2015, a big group of individuals, many of these at the table, many Parks employees, many Friends of Warner Park employees and volunteers worked with Metro Parks to put together the Warner Parks Priorities Guide. And it was out of this guide that the initial project, and in your notes are everybody who's worked on the project, et cetera. And from that priorities guide was the initial project of the Allée, which Kevin and Gavan were here earlier this year to talk to you about the fundraising for that event, for that addition to the, or upgrade restoration for the Allée. So as we were beginning to meet with our funders for that, many of them encouraged, and we talk a lot about the priorities guide. So we made the decision to take a broader look at what needs to be done in Warner Parks and not just this one project. all based on the priorities. And so we had a number of funders also encourage us to look broader. Don't come for each piece. Let's look at the overall projects. And so from the priorities guide, again, the list of that you have there, the LA, stonework, the nature center improvements, the structural improvements to the historic buildings, the overall maintenance needs, trail improvements, invasive plants, and then reserve for additional land acquisition. We intend, or would like to go forward with the fundraising for all of these projects as the money is committed, then we will obviously work as we have with the LA, with the Parks Department and members of the staff and our staff to move the projects forward. I think the LA project is one of the most detailed projects. Bob has spent untold hours with Tim and others getting that project going. And we don't have a number for every single one of these projects. We just have an overall estimate. But as we move into each project based on the priorities that are listed in the guide, we will move forward with those in partnership with the Parks Department. So I'm here today to let you know that we are going to go forward with funding, or with funding requests, not from you all, but fundraising for all the list of each of these projects.
Are there any questions?
So what is the total dollar amount you're expecting?
We are hoping we're going to do it in phases, we think, more just for what we're able to absorb from our staffing and from what the parks are able to absorb. So we hope to phase it in $5 million phases. We know that the beginning of the LA is $3 million. You all have seen those numbers. So the first phase, in addition to some additional stonework there, is probably $5 million. So we hope to do it in $3-5 million phases, if you will. So $15 million. But if we can raise $20 million, I mean, we'll see, but that's the goal, I believe, in the phases. And the first phase, again, is the raising the money for the LA and the additional, so that'll be a $5 million phase.
And do you have a sense of the timing of that, if best case scenario? What kind of...
By Christmas.
Okay.
No, I'm hopeful, I'm going to say 18 months. That is my best estimation. It could be, and that is not necessarily getting all $15 million in the bank. If funders want to give a $5 million gift or a $3 million gift, or we can do it over 2 or 3 years, or 3 to 5 years, depending on what they want to do. So. I think we haven't really talked about when the goal is to raise the $15 million. I think it'll be an ongoing fundraising campaign. And if we get to $15 million and some of these projects or more projects come available at the golf course or whatever, then we will, we'll continue to help raise money for those projects as well. But initially, $15 million in 3 phases.
Make a motion to approve.
I think there was another.
Let me see this. I had the privilege of being kind of the liaison from this board to the Friends of Warren Park this past year, and I will tell you, they are as well ready to do these things as anybody I've ever seen. When I've gone to their meetings, they're organized, and they've got things not only in order, but it's almost like you're in a business meeting. And I know it's supposed to be that, but they're serious about it, and they assign things, and the people they assign them to take them seriously, and they get them done. That's the thing that I've really been impressed with over the time I've been.
And I would say that's mostly due in partnership with the Parks Department, because of Bob Parrish.
Well, Bob Parrish and Kevin Roddy, you've got a real twosome right there.
Oh, for better or for worse sometimes. He didn't even shave for y'all today. Can you believe it? Who else noticed that when he came in?
You know I have something to say after the meeting.
Do that off record.
But again, all of this stems, as I mentioned, from this priorities guide, and I'm happy to share this with you all. I mean, you all have copies and copies of it, I know. And really, it's because of the partnership, the work that Tim does, the work that Bob does, and it really is identifying. I think the biggest, question is identifying what needs to be done, and there's been lots of years gone into identifying what needs to be done, and now it's all right here, and I love marking things off my list. So we'll just hopefully go through, and if, we end up at $12.5 million and we have more money, we'll find more things on the list to do. But I don't anticipate it to be the other way. We need more funding than the projects, so.
Well, thank you, Ms. Hannon. Were there any more?
I was just going to ask if we could get a copy of the more detailed versions of the priorities.
Sure. Mhm. Janet, shall I get that to you? This priority's good? No? Do you want me to get it? I'll just get
We have
it.
a list.
You have that list, yes, but you would like the more detailed.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Then I'll make a motion to approve.
I didn't mean to interrupt your motion. I'll second your motion.
And we have a staff recommendation of approval. Thank you so much. It has been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, Ms. Hannon. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
07-19-04, Ms. Helen Newhoff, President of Tennis Nashville, requests board approval to be formally recognized as Friends of Tennis Nashville and an official support organization of Metro Parks as per Park Policy 3000.31. Ms. Newhoff, we have a presentation.
Yes, hi, my name is Helen Newhoff. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for all you do. We are a very passionate organization with a database of over 2,000 area tennis enthusiasts, including area tennis pros and coaches. We have an excellent working relationship with USTA Tennessee, and together with Parks and Recreation, it is our desire to grow, promote, and support the game of tennis and community. I do have some handouts. I'd like to introduce Greg Bates, is our secretary at Tennis Nashville on the board of directors. Hugh Daniel is our webmaster, my advisor, and very knowledgeable. So we're not seeking money today. We are not seeking money from Metro Parks Commission, but rather a desire to work more closely with parks and other tennis organizations, both public and private, as Metro Parks Friends of Nashville Tennis Organization. So we are seeking a Friends of Nashville Tennis Organization. It's our desire to make Nashville tennis a great experience for all ages and demographics across all of Davidson County. Our organization is not localized at any one facility, but rather promotes tennis all across Metro, from county line to county line, and to all age groups. Tennis Nashville's proposal stands on the basis of its own merits. You'll see you have a letter from Michael Chamberlain, the Executive Director of USTA Tennessee. Also, I've provided you with a letter that we wrote to request this organization be recognized. We sent to Dr. Steele, and I'm assuming you all received that and have read that. That was included with our application to become a Friends group. We're considering working with Nashville Parks Foundation to process donations that would be related to Metro Parks tennis court improvements. So we've been in talks with Gretchen at the Parks Foundation and Charlie Tigard. So I think that's pretty much it. We have a fantastic website. Thank you, Hugh. And I'll take any questions you might have. Thank you for your time.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Hannon?
Any tennis players in the group?
Ms. Would love to, but
Time?
lungs. So if there are not any questions, would like to take this out of order. There is a, we would like to hear from Mr. David Wiley. It's the next thing on the agenda, 07-19-05. David Wiley requests permission to address the board regarding the Friends of Tennis National application.
So no questions for me?
No questions for you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Newhoff. Mr. Wiley?
David, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good morning, Nashville Parks and Recreation. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, Director Odom and Metro Nashville Davidson County community. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is David Wiley Long, a local United States Tennis Association tennis captain, player, and a fan of the sport. I come today with a request that you deny the application for Tennis Nashville to start a friends group. For the past 5 years, I've enjoyed playing this great sport of tennis. It has been a constant joy in my life, and I support everything tennis related. However, our local community Tennis Association, Tennis Nashville, does not want to work with everyone in the Nashville community. Tennis Nashville continues to be isolated and does not promote diversity and inclusion needed for the sport to grow and succeed and expand. To begin, Tennis Nashville has always mimicked the city it represents. Since its humble beginnings, it has not had one African American board member, nor the desire to expand their reach to this population. I was hired February 1st, 2019, after doing a 15-minute presentation to the Board of Directors of the critical need for a local community coordinator. At first, all 7 board members seemed excited at the prospect of my hire and gave me much-needed encouragement to build community within the Nashville-Davidson community. However, after given 7 different tasks, including building a history of tennis of Nashville, tournament promotion, a new social media presence, and presence at events, I was constantly disregarded by board members, and they did not want to work with me. 60 days after my hire, the board president alleged that they ran out of money to pay me. While working 12 hours a week, I understood and I started let me begin again. With me working 12 hours a week and starting multiple new initiatives within Tennis Nashville, I asked if I could volunteer for 3 months for a total of 120 hours to try to find new funding and continue the projects that I started. This 120 hours would be more than the 96 hours that I was paid for. However, the board denied my request to volunteer. Additionally, a request to join the board of directors was denied. The first request to deny due to me being paid as the local community coordinator. However, off payroll and ready to volunteer as other board members, I was not invited to join and my request was denied. However, a week later, they offered me an opportunity to continue a program funded by the USTA. I did aggressive outreach only to be relieved of my responsibilities due to reasons still unknown. They even threatened to sue me if I continue to use the email I created for tennis correspondence. Tennis Nashville wants to keep tennis a white sport. Just yesterday, while watching Wimbledon, the commentators stated it is a white sport, but with new players, including Coco Graf, it can be expanded to communities to allow diversity and inclusion. Tennis Nashville does not want that. They currently only highlight Vanderbilt University team on its calendar, even after I submitted home and away games for Tennessee State University. At a recent relaunch event to honor local players, it was only 5 African Americans present, including myself and 2 ladies invited. This was over 100 people attended. Additionally, they are currently hosting a summer tennis league. This league, in which I am one of the captains of 7 teams, has 42 players, and my team is the only black players within the league. They do not desire to expand the reach.
Mr. Long, is Wiley Long?
Yes.
I apologize. Our time is up for your presentation.
They said 10 minutes?
No, sir.
It was in the email that Ms. Frazier sent?
7
to 10 minutes. Oh, okay. Well, I only have 1 paragraph, or I have to leave?
No, you don't have to leave.
Okay,
We can wrap
I'm
it
sorry.
up. You're
Yes, I'm almost done. I do apologize. While Tennis Nashville does not want to change the rhythm of tennis in Nashville, they do not desire to be inclusive. Upon my second day of work this past February, the board president mentioned to me that a country club in Belle Meade, and I quote, got a black. Taken a little aback, I was asked what she meant. She stated that they allowed a black person to join. I asked for more insight, as this was quite alarming to me in 2019. I asked, was it a man or woman? She said, jokingly, she did not know. She just knew it was black. In conclusion, I deny you to deny the request for 1 year until they make a solid effort to make tennis for everyone and work with existing Friends of Hadley Park Tennis to show they are for everyone in the community playing tennis. I want tennis for all, not a select few. Thank you for your attention in this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Long? All righty, so we have an application before us, a request before us to formally recognize Friends of Tennis Nashville. Is there a recommendation from the staff?
John Holmes.
John Holmes?
The staff supports any efforts to grow the game and support our ability to provide courts to the public, to the citizens of Nashville. The one stipulation is that that group must coexist with all other friends groups. With that being the understanding, we would support any efforts to grow the game of tennis and raise funds to make improvements to our tennis courts.
Okay, thank you. So the staff recommendation is for approval if, if Tennis for All, Friends of Tennis Nashville expands that
To everyone.
to
Yes,
everyone.
ma'am.
So there is a, would you like to address this recommendation, Ms. Newhoff?
Yes.
Expanding it to, because there have been some accusations made.
Right, and I'm quite shocked, actually, very shocked at those accusations because they're false and completely taken out of context. So, Hugh?
Well, I would say, number one, we do have had an African-American board member, so that's incorrect. We also do have a very diverse group that is affiliated with Nashville Tennis Meetup, which is open to everyone, has a wide diversity of Asians, Indians. It's a very diverse group, so that makes no sense to me. And there are other African Americans playing in the league, so that's misinformation. That's not correct at all. So, you know, I'd be glad to provide any further information or any details as necessary, but I'm just going to say from my perception as, you know, director of this league, that information that has been given to you in David's presentation is not correct. So,
Questions?
Director Odom.
I would like to just say that this is not a tribunal to hear a case about allegations of either discrimination or exclusion, although it's valuable information. What I have shared with both Ms. Newhoff and the Friends of Nashville Tennis.
Tennis Nashville.
Tennis Nashville,
Friends of
pardon me,
Nashville Tennis.
sorry.
No, it's fine.
Have shared with you all as well as Mr. Wiley Long is that the Parks Department welcomes all of the support, all community support to help us expand the game of tennis and programming and maintenance and repairs of tennis courts. We do have an existing Friends support group specifically for tennis, Friends of Hadley Park, and while they are Hadley Park Tennis, and while they are housed at Hadley Park Tennis Facility, their programming and fundraising efforts extend across the system. And if Nashville Tennis Nashville can come in and coexist as a friends group, we would certainly welcome that. I think my exact words were, I do not expect any unhealthy competition.
Absolutely
I think
not.
the more the merrier, the more we can uplift tennis in this community. I'd support that and all fundraising activities and community support. So.
Thank you, Ms. Odom.
What is the current relationship with Hadley Tennis?
Oh, we're open with Hadley. We have working relationships with Hadley. We've been working on a lot of other things to grow our organization that haven't really needed to reach out to Hadley or Centennial for that matter. Those are our two public court facilities in Nashville, our two large public court facilities. our focus with the Friends of group, we want to focus on public courts. And we want to help you with these public courts. We have so many, and some of them are in, okay condition, and we would like to fundraise and make them in good condition and promote them and have tournaments and bring the community out to these wonderful public facilities that we have beyond Hadley and Centennial, please. Oh, right, thank you. You just reminded me that we have a wonderful league going on, that David's got a captaining a team. Actually, I think you're in first place, aren't you? We will be hosting it at Hadley, and we have hosted a couple of the matches at Centennial. But yes, we have already paid in advance for those courts at Hadley. So,
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? We will vote on 07-19-04. Again, restating Helen Newhoff, President of Tennis Nashville, requests board approval to be formally recognized as Friends of Tennis Nashville, an official support organization of Metro Parks as per Park Policy 3000.31. The staff recommendation is for approval. Is there a motion?
I make a motion for approval.
I'll second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? One opposed. The motion passes. Thank you
very
all for
much.
your time. Thank you for your, I hope that, it seems that you were surprised by some of the
Oh, I
comments
was
that were
really
made.
taken aback.
hope
I
that
thought
there'll
we had
be
a good
further
working
discussion,
relationship.
Further
Yeah.
conversation, and that the staff recommendation to make this available to all.
oh, it is,
Certainly
absolutely.
happens.
Thank you
We'll
all
be
so
watching.
much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to 07-19-06, Mr. David Profit, representing Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools, requests board approval of agreement for dedication of the 10-inch drainage easement and an agreement for dedication of easement for temporary grading and sloping to Belmont University for construction of an indoor batting facility to be constructed on Metro Nashville Schools property. This will be deferred to acquisition. Just a note.
Yeah, Mr. Prophet's here.
Mr. Prophet, you wanted to?
Thank you, Chairman Steele, Ms. Odom, Dr. Gentry, how are you? And the rest of the board members. Very simply, there's a batting facility at Belmont University. Jason Rogers is here in case you have any technical questions about what they're doing there. It's going to benefit our baseball teams throughout the entire district. When Belmont's not using the facility, we'll be able to schedule our kids in there. Where it's located on the backside of Rose Park, adjacent to your all's property, they will be doing some drainage improvements on that backside, which would require the drainage easement. It's actually for one inlet on the grounds, and then the construction easement, obviously, it goes virtually right up next to the property line, so they would be in a particular area during construction. And it would be rebuilt to like new condition, and we just request that we be able to get those easements moving. This is something that our board approved back in November, I believe it was 27th, and formalized, I think, the following December. Any questions?
All right, this will be deferred to our acquisition committee for our next meeting in August.
Okay. Thank you very much.
07-19-07, Ms. Gretchen Pritchett, President, CEO of the Nashville Parks Foundation, requests the board to accept a donation of maintenance services from September 2019 through spring 2020 with an approximate value of $10,160 for trees on the Betty Brown Tree Trail.
Recommend approval.
Thank you. Is there, so the staff has recommended approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
I'm recusing myself from this.
Thank you. You get that note? She's recusing herself from the vote.
I'm recusing myself from this.
Thank you. 07-19-08, staff requests board to approve and accept signage for the Betty Brown Tree Trail renovation. Is there a presentation? All right, is there a staff recommendation?
Recommend approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved in second. All those in favor? Thank you so much. 07-19-09, staff requests board approval to acquire 106.8 acres of land located at 0 Old Hickory Boulevard, parcel number 102-000-00500 as open space for Metro Parks. We need to suspend the rules that would send this to acquisition per policy 300.25, acquisition and disposition of park property. We will need to vote on this today because of the stipulation that Metro will accept the property by July 31st. Hi, Tom.
Tom's here, yeah.
Tom Cross is the Director of Law from Metropolitan Government, who will make a presentation.
Well, I don't have much of a presentation to make other than we've got an opportunity to acquire this piece of property that, I won't say it came up suddenly, but the purchase opportunity certainly did, and we would like to give the board and the council more time to consider this, but the seller wants to close by July 31st and wouldn't give us an extension on that. The piece of property is right on the river, and Liz McLaurin from the Land Trust is here, and she, I think, may have a map that she could share with you to show you where it is. If maybe we could get a little help with the AV to show you exactly where the parcel is. And I certainly don't need to be telling the Parks Board what you could do with the property, but it is nice to get a big piece of property right on the river because it, if nothing else, opens up opportunities for canoeing and things like that.
And I might add that this piece of property actually has been kind of on our unofficial target list internally since 2011. And so we had a former employee actually here, Shane Dennison, who had been working on this acquisition for some time now. And now we have the opportunity to acquire it and try to move forward.
So Old Hickory Boulevard.
Yeah, the first one.
Bounds on one side.
It's a big file.
Do you want? Here's the pointer, and I'll zoom in.
Okay, thank you. Do you want me to talk about it?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you for letting me be here as well. The property is the subject property number 1, and it is at the end of Old Hickory Boulevard in the Bend, and it's 106.8 acres, and it's critical in that it has the ability to connect with Bells Bend Park via a greenway. It also has the potential for a loop trail on it. It is, if you actually, well, we won't go to the next map. The next map shows more about the actual conservation value of the property. But as Monique said, this has been on the park's radar screen for a very long time. And Shane Dennison worked with us, worked on her own, and then asked us to join in during the Dean administration to sort of act as facilitator on this. It does have the potential to either link to the old Cleese's Ferry route for pedestrian and ferry, pedestrian bike ferry. And then in the open space plan, there was a pedestrian bridge planned for that area as well. So it's named in the open space plan, Nashville Next, and Plan to Play. So this is a critical piece that, though, as Tom said, has sort of just come up as a potential. It's not new, really.
And I'd also like to add, I think I've shared with the park board members that the funding for this acquisition is already available in the park's capital budget.
Monique, can I ask you to just add a comment about that for the listening public to distinguish between capital spending and program spending?
Sure. So there are a few different funding appropriations in Metro government. Operating budgets fund the staffing and operations of departments. Capital funding are for large and long-range projects and usually are bond-funded projects. And so they do not overlap. And so there are I'll just say two buckets of money. Thank you for asking me to do that, because there can be some confusion about, particularly with things circulating in the press today, where the money is coming from. And so we have capital funding from our FY19 capital appropriation for greenways and acquisitions. We got $10 million for that, and so that is where this funding will come from.
Are there any other questions?
I do have some questions. I think, could you spend a little bit of time putting the price in context so that, I think it's our responsibility to just ask how that fits into price of land and how the 15...
The Land Trust commissioned an appraisal on the property, and I have to explain a little bit more about the document, which I may bore some people listening. The current tenant on the property operates a sod farm. They grow sod for commercial sale. They have an option to purchase the property from the owner. We are buying the option to purchase from the tenant with the consent of the owner. And so the sum of the purchase price specified in the tenant's option, plus what we're paying for to get that right, is less than the appraised value.
And can you speak to what happens if it doesn't close by July 31st?
We will miss the deal. I mean, we might go back to them and say, we'd like to take another run at it at some point. But the tenant has told us that they would like to install some equipment related to the business that they're conducting, and they've put that off while they waited for us to see whether we could buy the property. But they're going to have to decide whether to make that investment or not, and they may not be willing to sell it, and they may not be willing to sell it at the same price.
So it sounds like it's a good deal, and the clock is ticking.
Right.
And I will add that it was on the market, probably shouldn't have been given what we found in the lease. And we applied for a grant a number of years ago before it went off the market, but the price in 2015 when it was on the market was, or the asking price was $2.1 million. So this is definitely far below that, and still below our appraisal. So it is a good deal, as you said.
One small question is I noticed in Tom's email, it was talking about the Land Trust helped put together the deal. The appraisal that the Land Trust had paid for, is that part of the closing?
It's not. I anticipate the Land Trust is going to apply for funding for that, or to be reimbursed through sort of a separate process for that. That's not something that closing we'll have to pay for at closing.
So Metro's, that's not part of what Metro's...
Not in this,
funding
not for this deal, no.
Okay.
All right, I need to accept a motion to suspend the rules to not send this to acquisition.
I make a motion to suspend the rules.
Thank you. Is there second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All righty, I'll entertain a motion for 07-19-09, staff request board approval to acquire 106.8 acres of land located at 0 Old Hickory Boulevard, parcel number 102-000-00500 as open space for Metro Parks.
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been probably moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much for your time. Moving to special presentations and introductions. The Friends of Mill Ridge Park to present their annual update to the board. Darryl.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks, Dr. Steele, and thank you, board, for having me back. It's been a year since I stood here, and we agreed on the name of our new regional park in southeast Davidson County. Friends of Mill Ridge Park was established in 2017 and began operating in January of 2018. At that time, I was hired as the executive director to lead the mission of enhancing and advocating for Mill Ridge Park to strengthen the community of southeast Davidson County. We are located in the southeast Davidson County quadrant, shown here with the red circle. And Mill Ridge Park covers 650 acres of forest, grasslands, and farmland with abounding history and nature. Our 2018 budget consisted of revenues of $160,000 from contributions, grants, and donations, and $111,000 in expenses. Our 2019 budget consists of expenses of $172,000. We've convened a board of directors of 15 individuals who are community and business leaders from the local area, including your very own Jackie Jones from the department. In January of this past January, the board of directors convened to finalize a strategic plan to guide our operations. Since this time last year, at which point we named the park, we have established a brand, a rather attractive brand, we think, and we've activated our online presence, including social media, to build awareness and to engage the community. We've also developed a core of corporate partners who take part in and support and fund our operations. Those corporate partners are shown here, and you can see some photos from where we gathered in August of last year with Mayor Briley and Director Odom to engage those corporate leaders. As a small startup organization, in order to engage the community, we have established on-the-ground partnerships with local organizations and public agencies, including the Nashville Food Project, Small World Yoga, the Metro Arts Commission, Weed Wrangle, Hiking Meetup, and the Cumberland River Compact, as well as student bodies from the area, middle and high schools. We have convened to construct habitats for bats for eventual installation at Mill Ridge Park. We have piloted a kite festival on some of the rolling hills. We also have, this past semester, convened an art group for plein air painting at Mill Ridge Park. We have mapped nearly 10 miles of trails as well. We've also held and plan to hold more events for the purpose of building awareness, engaging the community, and raising funds for our effort, including the Big Payback in May, as well as our first annual Summer Solstice Brunch, which took place on this last Saturday with an attendance of nearly 70 individuals from the community, with live music and good local garden food. We also were invited by the Center for Nonprofit Management to participate in this year's Innovation Catalyst to design the model for social enterprise that would operate on Mill Ridge Park in order to serve the community and generate sustainable revenue. That model currently looks like the conversion of an old barn that sits quite beautifully on the parkland, as you see in the bottom left corner, converting it into a community space and an event venue that would serve the community's needs as well as generate revenue. And we have appreciated a collaborative partnership with Director Odom and the park staff, including your own Jackie Jones, as I mentioned before. And we are hopeful to work with the department in the coming months to accelerate the opening of some of the parkland at Mill Ridge Park. Our board chair, Ben Freeland, devised a proposal that includes the construction of a simple trailhead that would allow immediate access for the community to the miles of trails that we have mapped already, as well as the occupation of the farmhouse on the land by the Friends Group to more proximately and more regularly serve the community at Mill Ridge Park. I'm happy to answer your questions.
You're growing vegetables out there? Is that in the farmland?
So I alluded to the partnership with the Nashville Food Project, and so they are gardening on a 1-acre plot with 12 gardeners from the community, and the plans are to grow that in partnership with the department to 50 gardeners by this time next year. And so those 12 gardeners are growing produce from, in some cases, from their homelands, if they're, in the case of several gardeners, refugees or new Americans. We have tomato plants as tall as I am already. And on May 18th, the photo you saw, Director Odom spoke to our guests of about 100 folks from the community that were there to celebrate the opening of that garden.
And how does that arrangement work? Do they lease that, or what is the?
They applied for and were approved by the board for a usage permit, a 1-year usage permit that is renewable with approval by the board.
So I was a little surprised, so it's not open to the public right now, the park is not?
The park is not open to the public unless the Friends Group, or in the case of the Nashville Food Project, are hosting individuals on the park land.
I mean, what would it take to open it for the trails?
We're currently in the middle of design phase for phase 1. That's the $12 million that was allocated a year or so ago. So we will wrap up design for phase 1 at the end of this year, and then it will go out to bid for construction. So until that point, the property is land banked except for guided, permitted events and the daily work that's permitted through the Nashville Food Project.
Is there nothing temporary we can do to open it? I mean, it seems like the area needs the park for usage, right?
We've had some ongoing discussions about a more modest project, trailhead and parking, in order for people to access those trails. So that's a goal.
I don't think we should wait to the end of the year and wait till next year to use this park. We've had it. I remember the day we went out there with Carl Dean and announced it. It's been a long time for that neighborhood.
So we'll look at working on getting that trailhead.
Yeah, I mean, can we do a temporary trailhead while we're going through this process? I mean, we own the property, and there are trails out there, right?
Yeah, the project that Tim alluded to is kind of a rendering of that design is shown here on the right corner. It's essentially looking at the simple creation of a temporary trailhead with gravel and some signage, lighting that would allow the community to access those acres and miles of trails that exist already while we move forward with phase 1 construction process.
Can we get maybe an idea or report for the next board meeting?
Yeah.
Call it a
Do we have a cost estimate?
Yeah, or just a Band-Aid solution to let the neighbors use it.
Do we have a cost estimate on that?
We had an original cost estimate, which we believe was quite higher than the newer design, by simply moving, if there's a point on this, I'll try and show it. Simply moving the gravel parking lot from the park land to the end of the Crossings Boulevard, where there's an easement currently, an access easement, and then a footpath onto the parkland. And by doing that shift of the design, we anticipate a dramatic decrease of the cost.
So could you get that cost estimate to
Yes.
us, and we can
For the next board meeting.
make that happen?
Yes,
I'd be glad to.
accelerate this, because
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Hawes.
Thank you.
Appreciate
See
your
you in Mill
time.
Ridge Park. Thank you.
International Boxing Academy of Nashville to present details of a partnership with Metro Parks and Kirkpatrick Community Center to establish a free youth boxing component of the after-school program in the fall of 2019.
I have some pamphlets here.
Please state your names.
Yes. I'm here just the board to Commander David Armoff of the East Precinct and Mr. Randall Benson of International Boxing Academy of Nashville. A few months ago, we started discussing details of a potential partnership of developing a boxing component of after-school program at Kirkpatrick Community Center. They're here to present those details of their partnership.
Good afternoon to Dr. Steele, Director Odom, and the rest of the board. I really appreciate y'all taking the time to let us present our proposal on introducing youth boxing to the Kirkpatrick Community Center that would serve the youth over at Casey Place. Mr. Vincent's here with me. I've known him for over 10 years. I know he's been involved in boxing for the majority of his life. But before we get into the boxing program, if I could just for a minute kind of give you the evolution of how we got here today. I've been the commander over East Precinct for 8 years now. 2 years ago, in 2017, the Casey Place community, as well as the East Precinct, as well as actually the whole Nashville community, suffered a huge tragedy when we lost 2 Stratford students over in Casey Place. One was Vistorius Lucas. She was a senior at Stratford High School, about to go on to Trevecca University to continue her education as well as her basketball career, and she was tragically shot down in the middle of Casey. Later on that year, Debrianna Bagley, who was a 16-year-old young woman who was also a student at Stratford, also died because of a shooting that took place in Casey Place. And she wasn't a part of any of that. She was just an innocent bystander that happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. After those 2 tragedies, the police department and MDHA came together. More specifically, Director Jim Harbison and myself met, talking about what we could do to improve the conditions in Casey and make it more safe. That's when we came up with an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, where MDHA would provide us $100,000 to give overtime initiatives to have 3 officers and a sergeant do community policing, to go out and do walking patrols, biking patrols, build bridges with the community and try to improve things for the residents living there. And in 2018, we saw 11% reduction in crime overall, and we saw a 22% reduction in violent crime, which was tremendous at that time, and you have to give all the credit in the world to the residents of Casey for that happening. We wanted to double down on that success and even try to improve it even more. So what we did is we committed a sergeant and 9 officers to work in Casey Place 5 days a week, 8.5 hours a day, to do just that, more community policing, more interaction with the community with walking patrols, bike patrols, working with the schools, working with the community centers, as well as working with other nonprofits such as the Martha O'Brien Center with mentoring, tutoring. We started a walk-to-school program with the kids, lunch buddy program with the kids, as well as doing the other things. We also started an advisory board in which we got Casey residents, historic Edgefield residents, MDHA employees, including Mike Evans, who is the manager over at Casey Place, Councilman Brett Withers, and nonprofits in the area to come together to kind of find out what they saw as problems in Casey Place and what can we do to solve those, not always from a police department standpoint, but just from a community standpoint. How can we attack different issues? Very first meeting was about 4.5 months ago, and the overwhelming response from everybody was youth crime, youth engagement, what can we do about the kids in the area, more specifically about 12 to 18-year-old kids, because it seems like there's a tremendous amount of programs out there for a lot of the children. The community centers do a tremendous job with the younger kids, but we saw where maybe the 12 to 18-year-old at-risk kids were kind of falling through the cracks. So where we were talking about in our advisory board meeting was possibly a boxing program and possibly looking at the Kirkpatrick Center to house that. So at that time, I went to the Kirkpatrick Center. I met with the director at the Kirkpatrick Center, who was amazing, gave us a tour, did a fantastic job. And from there, and they were very open to it at that time, I talked to Captain Chris Taylor of Park Police, who introduced me to Mr. Nelms, who then I introduced to Mr. Randall Vincent, and we've been talking ever since about putting this program together to try to help that at-risk population. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Mr. Vincent to tell him about his vision and what his program is, and if you have any questions for us, we'd love to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commander Imhoff. Thank you, Mr. Nelms. I am a native of Nashville, and I got into boxing because I was bullied. I was smaller than the other kids. I had a baby face. And so therefore, you know, I'm just an instant target. And I happened to be looking at the Olympics, I guess I'm telling my age now, the 1976 Olympic Games. And I saw Clint Jackson, and they mentioned that he was from Nashville, Tennessee. And I said I had to find out where he was and get involved in that program. So to make a long story short, I got into the boxing program at the Sheriff's Department that was then run by Faith Thomas. And from my personal experience, it changed my whole personality. I started to get self-esteem. I started to feel good about myself. And I realized that I didn't have to fight to keep bullies off of me. I just had to have confidence and stand up for myself. And that's what boxing did for me. And fast forward again, later on I became a social worker with United Neighborhood Health Services, which is now Neighborhood Health. I worked for 16 and a half years there. I worked primarily with young people who are in gangs or engaged in violence. It's been my experience that when you work with young people, you engage them, you have activities for them, but also they feel that you care about them. That creates change. See, most of the kids that we have that are in trouble now, they're what I call fence straddlers. We always focus on the kids that are doing very well or the kids that are doing horribly bad, but we don't focus on the fence stragglers. And so therefore, I wanted to put together a program that focused on those young people so that they didn't end up in prison. And it just so happened that as a boxing coach, because I've been a boxing coach for many, many years, that Dr. Christy Halbert suggested that I open up my own boxing program. And so I did that in Bordeaux, and the response has been tremendous. We've been getting referrals from juvenile court. And so when the opportunity, when Commander Imhoff called me and asked me about a boxing program in Kirkpatrick, I was very interested. I did most of my work as a social worker in East Nashville. And so we are here today to see if we can form a partnership where we have a program that not only focuses on boxing, but focuses on mentoring, focuses on academics. We have something called Hit the Books. Also focus on the young people's need to use violence as a means to get respect. A lot of times that's where the violence comes from. It's trying to build self-esteem, but in a very negative way that's very detrimental to our city. So we're hoping that you are very receptive to us being able to do this, and any questions that you may have, I'll be glad to answer, or Commander Imhoff.
Any questions?
I didn't know I needed a tissue today. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing your story.
And I'd just say this is just another opportunity for Parks and Recreation, Metro Police, and community organizations to work together to support our greater Nashville community and our young people. So it's positive.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vinson and Commander Imhoff. We appreciate you and your time.
Thank you.
We're moving to capital projects update. Tim Naish has
I will just mention 3 projects. The Red Caboose Playground at Bellevue is complete, and so we'll have a soft opening. It may already be open, but if it's not already open, it'll be open by the end of the week. A ribbon cutting event was planned for this Saturday, but it is being postponed due to the council ladies' schedule. And the Mansker Creek Park is now open to the public, and there is not a ribbon cutting event planned. So it's open, and that project is complete. At Centennial Park, it is still in permitting, and I am hesitant to make any more predictions about when we'll actually break ground on that project. But Monique wanted me to share some additional information with you about that, knowing that we're going to break ground soon because this project will have some impacts on trees. So you've got a handout, and then I've got some slides to share with you. Let me also introduce Chris Barkley with Hodgson & Douglas Landscape Architects. He leads the local landscape architecture team on Centennial Park and has helped to produce some of the materials that I'll be sharing today. So first I just want to give you an overview of the whole project quickly so you understand kind of context for what we're doing. So this is an image of the concept plan for the whole park. So this is sort of our playbook for all existing and future phases for master plan implementation. In 2015, we completed the Phase 1 project. So let me orient you: West End Avenue, the Parthenon, Lake Watauga. The Phase 1 project consisted of improvements to Cockrell Spring, the addition of the Musicians Corner permanent venue, landscape, circulation, and parking improvements around the Parthenon, including the new ellipse at the entrance, and dredging and other water quality improvements in Lake Watauga. Okay, the image has been rotated slightly, so now this is West End, this is the Parthenon. So this shows the approximate boundaries of the Phase 2 project. It consists of the Great Lawn, West End entrance improvements, landscaping and lighting improvements around the Parthenon, and then some limited landscape improvements as you move from the Great Lawn toward the bandshell, just to make sure that existing features on the bandshell side knit neatly into the improvements planned for the Great Lawn. So, the Great Lawn. Essentially, we are re-engineering the lawn itself. It'll almost be like a professional sports field with drainage, irrigation, soil and turf improvements. And the goal is to make it more durable to all of the traffic and the big events that happen there. So that it will recover more quickly after big events. It will cover more quickly after big rain events. On each side of the Great Lawn will be a very generous pedestrian pathway, 20 feet wide, and each of those pathways will be flanked by an alley of canopy trees. Each of the spaces in between the trees is designed to accommodate tents, food trucks, the other types of features that get staged during a special event. So this is a rendering of what that walkway and alley will look like on the east side of the Great Lawn if you were entering from West End. These are just some diagrams that we produced during the design phase about the West End entrance. So this is the West End entrance. That walkway that I talked about on the Great Lawn will continue all the way down through the front of the park near Cockrell Spring to the main entrance. So we're reallocating a lot of that real estate from cars to pedestrians. We want pedestrians to be kind of the top of the food chain in the park. And these are some of the conceptual landscape plans that were developed for the landscape treatment there. And then landscape improvements and, more importantly, lighting around the Parthenon. So we'll be getting rid of those floodlights, footlights, and putting in really beautiful architectural lighting for the Parthenon. Has it stopped working? There we go. Trees. Any project of this scale has impacts on trees. Any project that the planning division does always has a planting plan and then typically a tree removal plan. If you're going in and grading the earth, dredging, invariably there are some impacts. But I think that what we're doing here is a model of best practices, but nevertheless we'll be removing some trees. So I want to walk you through our process. We had an urban forester on the design team, so one of the very first things that we did was have him do a health and condition assessment of all of the trees in the Phase 2 zone, and that told us which trees were the highest quality and we needed to go to the most efforts to protect. And as we moved through the design phase, we continued to make adjustments, tweak alignments of paths, that kind of thing, in order to minimize impacts. So in terms of the regulatory requirements that are through codes, et cetera, this project complies with and surpasses not only the existing tree ordinance, but also the amendments to the tree ordinance that are currently making their way through council. It also complies with Executive Order 40, which has a lead by example section that requires metro projects to exceed the tree ordinance requirements by 15%, and I'll get into those numbers in a second. So overall, there are a number of interventions that we've done in order to improve conditions overall for trees. One is the selection of hardy species that not only are going to have better chances of long-term survivability, but it also include improved species diversity of trees in the park. We're aerating the soils, doing soil modifications throughout the park. We're improving and expanding the irrigation zones in Phase 2, and perhaps most importantly, we are introducing design features to help keep cars out of the root zones of trees. This image is one that's pretty common in the park these days, especially during a big event. It's very difficult for us to keep cars out of the root zones of trees. So we're introducing a number of barriers that will make that more difficult for cars. Obviously, if you're in a monster truck, you're still going to be able to probably drive wherever you want to. But we've had very good luck, for example, in Phase 1 with 8-inch curbs. So barriers like that and other barriers. We're also creating a larger car-free zone in the park where we're just not inviting cars into that area of the park anymore. So now I'm kind of going to get in the weeds a little bit because this is literally about tree removal. So we had the urban forester on the design team at the beginning of the process. That is now 3 years ago. More recently, Rick and his division have been working on a larger emerald ash borer strategy for the whole park system. So they commissioned a new health assessment of all of the trees in Centennial Park, and that's this report. And you guys might want to take a look at it. It's got a lot of detail in it, very, very useful. So at this point in the game, we decided that we had to do a new tree removal and tree planting plan for Phase 2, and that's what Chris and his team have been working on. So let me show you what this, let me go through this with you. Whoops. There we go. So the pink outline is the limits of the Phase 2 project. All of the trees here that have been faded out are trees that will remain in Phase 2. All of the very bold, bright trees are trees that are going to be removed. The differences in color reflect the priority or the condition of the tree per Davy tree. So trees that are red are priority 4 trees, meaning that Davy is recommending that they be removed. That's regardless of whether we were doing the Phase 2 project or not. The trees in orange have evidence of disease and other defects. They're not necessarily a liability at this point, but per Davy, they don't warrant any kind of special protection. Trees in green are good quality trees, and trees in blue are excellent quality trees. So we're not proposing to remove any of the excellent quality trees. The trees in green are trees that we were not able to find a way to avoid. So they will be impacted by construction. I will note that 2 of the larger green trees are elms, and Davy recommended, regardless of Phase 2, that they be cabled. Davy also recommends that you do not cable trees in a public park. So we're in a little bit of a catch-22 on those 2 trees. If we kept them, we would have to cable them, and that is not a recommended practice. This is the tree planting plan. So all of the pale yellow trees that are whited out are the ones that are going to be remain in place. All of the peach-colored trees are the ones that are slated for removal. All of the bright green trees are new trees that we're planting in Phase 2. So I mentioned the tree ordinance. So this is the tree ordinance by the numbers. Tree density units is the way that the tree ordinance measures the number and size of trees on any given development project. And I am not going to get into the metrics of that. You're welcome to refer to the tree ordinance. However, under the existing tree ordinance, this is the TDU that is required of us on this project. Under the proposed amendments to the tree ordinance and Executive Order 40, this is the TDU that would be required of this project. What we're achieving in Centennial Park Phase 2 is this TDU. So we're head and shoulders above any requirements. We should be head and shoulders above any requirements because the tree ordinance is designed for private sector, commercial and residential development. So on almost every parks project, we are always head and shoulders above those requirements. I show this because it makes us look good, but we need to look good. We need to look like this on every project. Here's another measure of what we're doing. So this is the actual count of trees, two different measures here, the actual count of the number of trees, and then the caliper inches or the size of all of those trees. So let me go through the quantities first. So that's literally the number of trees. Currently, on our parcel, there are 1,833 trees. We can relocate 7 of those trees. We are planning to remove 83 trees. That's all those trees that were bolded on the previous image. Of those, 50 of them are priority 3 or 4. They're those red or orange trees that are in poor health. That means that we would be removing 33 good health trees, the green trees, as part of Phase 2 that are being impacted by construction. So that's 0.018% of the total trees on our parcel. We will be planting 123 trees. So the net result is that we will be going from 1,833 trees to 1,873 trees, a slight increase in the number of trees. Another important measure of it, though, is caliper inches, which is the size of the trees. This is the current caliper inches of all of the trees on our parcel, the caliper inches to be relocated. This is the total caliper inches to be removed, 0.069% of the total trees. This is the number removed for poor health. This are those good green trees that we wish we could save, but we can't. And this is the trees, the caliper inches of the trees to be planted. So we will be having a slight increase in the total number of trees in the park. We'll be having a slight decrease in overall caliper inches because, of course, when you plant new trees, those are smaller trees. So overall, given the other interventions we're doing we're making to improve conditions for trees and our strategy on tree removal and tree planting, we think what we're doing is defensible and we've done all due process on it, but nevertheless, some trees will be coming down in Centennial Park. So we wanted you to be aware of that, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And Chris is here if it gets too technical for me.
Any questions? Thank you.
Great, thanks.
We're moving to upcoming special events and activities. Jackie?
Yes. I think everybody is excited about the fact that the 4th of July is just in a few days, and we have a lot of events and a lot of parks that are participating in that. The 4th of July event, Let Freedom Sing, is taking place at Riverfront Park and throughout the downtown area. There will be a stage located at 5th and Broadway with live music. For those who are primarily interested in watching the fireworks, we've got several venues from which to do that, which includes, of course, Riverfront Park, the Green at Riverfront Park, which will have audio, Public Square Park, and the Music City Walk of Fame, and also Fort Negley will also be a park that will be participating in viewing the fireworks, if you will. Excuse me. The entertainment, Breck Eldridge, Mac McNeely, Jesse Wilson, Dylan Scott, Creature Comfort, Jackson Brook, and the Dukes of Hume, and also the Joe West Band, along with, of course, the Nashville Symphony. Earlier in the day, we'll have the Hot Chicken Festival at East Park. That will begin at 11 o'clock. And there's also a concert that is scheduled at the Ascend Theater. It's the 4th of July concert, and it'll also take place on that day. So if you're in the downtown area or any of the surrounding parks, it promises to be a fun day. But we don't want to just take up or utilize the 4th of July as the only thing going on in Metro Parks during the month of July. We also have the big band dances, which start at 7 p.m., and they will run every Saturday through August. Jazz on the Cumberland is another event that will go on through October. I would be remiss if I did not mention the Full Moon Picking Party at Percy Warner Park. Those events will go on, I believe it's every fourth Friday, if I'm not mistaken, through October. So there are a number of events, with the biggest probably being the 4th of July event that comes up on Thursday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Departmental updates.
Yeah, Rick Taylor has an update.
Thank you. Hunter Best, you can stand up, please. Hunter Best is a maintenance and repair worker. He's assigned to the Warner shop. He's been with us for almost 2 years. On, I believe it was June 5th, the director's office actually got a phone call from Kent Wall. And Kent is a frequent user of Warner Parks, and he called to commend Mr. Best on warning him about a rattlesnake that was in his pathway while he was walking with his 2 dogs. So I just wanted to recognize Hunter. The customer was very appreciative and actually spent some time on the phone with Janet. So I want to say thank you. I know it's probably simple for you to do, but I'm sure the dogs and the gentlemen probably appreciated not a rattlesnake. So,
Absolutely.
but thank you very much.
Thank you, Snake. A huge rattlesnake.
What happened to the rattlesnake?
Well, apparently the rattlesnake, go ahead and tell us.
What happened? It's huge.
Across the road, I reckon.
To get to the other side.
Why?
Why did it cross the road?
The snake apparently was sunbathing, so wasn't really active, just kind of laying in the roadway there in the pathway of the gentleman walking his dogs. So. The other person I'd want to recognize is Charles McNeil. Charles works at the Centennial Shop. He has been with us for about 4 years. He works in the playground inspection area, so he's out and about all over the county. Well, on June 11th, he happened to be driving on the interstate and ran across a vehicle that was on fire. Charles pulled off to the side of the road, got a fire extinguisher, extinguished the fire. Then he went to render aid to the person in the car who was basically unconscious. Charles tried to get him out of the car. The car was locked. The person had the window down enough, and Charles actually used his English-Spanish translator app on his cell phone to communicate to this person in the car because he could not speak English. And he calmed the gentleman down by saying, "Hey, I've called 911. They're on the way." Also, he prevented this man from walking out into the middle of the interstate. He was kind of incoherent, so Charles grabbed him, brought him back towards the car, and got him on the roadway. So I want to recognize him for bravery.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you for those reports, no matter how big, how small, whatever. We just want to say thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your service to the Parks.
Absolutely. And I just want to say,
of Nashville.
excuse me. I just want to say thank you. We want to take every opportunity that we get to show off what wonderful staff we have here in Metro Parks. They, as you can see, go above and beyond, and we're very proud of them and hope want everybody to know that. So thank you again for all that you do, and thank you for your commitment to our department and the city. Thank you.
Absolutely. And go ahead with the report of the director. Do you have any report?
I do. I have a few items. So the fiscal year 20 operating budget has been adopted. And in that budget, I think earlier this year, I shared with you the mayor's recommended budget. And so that is the budget that was adopted. And then it includes staffing and operations for Bellevue Regional Community Center, which is scheduled to open later this year, probably fall or winter. Extended hours at the Parthenon, I believe we'll be going to operations on Mondays, and we employees received a 3% cost of living adjustment, and also merit pay improvements for eligible employees. I'd also like to let you know about savings targets that we have heard will be incorporated into the fiscal year 20 budget. We haven't received that number and what that impact will be for our department, but what that will mean once again for us in terms of realizing savings, it will very likely mean frozen positions. Which again, I'm preaching to the choir when I'm speaking to you all, but that is very painful for our department. We, have employees who go above and beyond, and we are already understaffed in all divisions, and this only adds more pain to that, but we are committed to do the best we can with what we have. So we appreciate the support of the viewing public and the Parks Board and the leadership of the city. As you all may recall, a couple of weeks ago, there was some vandalism to a monument in Centennial Park. I reached out to you all via email just to let you know. A couple of years ago, we had convened a group of local historians and representatives from the Historical Commission, and we learned at that time that that monument could not be removed or relocated without state approval. So that is a process, there's a waiver process, and depending on whatever your pleasure is, we'll proceed with that. I think the Parks Board would need to vote on how we would want to proceed. But during those meetings a couple years ago, some of the local historians recommended relocating the monument. Nowhere specific was mentioned, but relocating it with some kind of contextual, interpretive information. So to put the monument in the entire context of the Confederate era. And so that may be an issue that you all want to discuss at a future meeting, and provide me some guidance on that. Our staff will begin participating in the ethics in public contracting training that's mandatory now. It'll be led by the Chief Compliance Officer, and I think legal will participate as well. So all employees in the department who are involved in the procurement process, whether that is requisitioning on the front end or making sure that goods and services have been received or reviewing contracts, everyone will participate in that. So we will begin that next week. I think Janet has reached out to you to get some dates that are good for you to do a site visit to some parks locations. As we discussed it, I think this will probably be the first of several, because we can't possibly get everything in that I certainly would like for you to see in one visit. So we're in the process of planning that. And then as well, we're in the process of planning a Parks Board meeting off-site. We plan to start doing that quarterly, as you've requested, having meetings at different locations. And that'll also give you an opportunity to see some of the operations of the system. And then finally, I'd like to draw attention to a golf article that appeared in Parks and Recreation Business Magazine. It was written by Jackie Jones, and Wayne Evans contributed. And John, yeah, I did John. And John, and we'll make sure you get a copy of it. It's really well written, and it kind of features our golf courses and really shows off all the good work that folks in that division do. Phil Luckett, who leads the maintenance operations over the golf courses, is our in-house genius when it comes to chemicals and turf management, and he leads a good group of folks. So we're glad to see them highlighted. Thank you, Jackie, for lending your journalistic expertise to that. And so we'll make sure that you all get a copy of that. And that is all I have.
All right. Thank you. Are there any announcements, requests for future agenda items or open items that we need to discuss?
No.
All righty. Well, do we have a quorum to adjourn?
I guess you have to stay here all night if you don't.
Entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.
the 7 Mile Creek watershed. Resolution RS 20